All right, this video is long overdue, but better late than never, right? Here's the deal, if I'm being honest, part of the reason I've not done this video is because I know that when 99.9% of the people watch this video, they're immediately gonna start evaluating and thinking about their last partner, their spouse, somebody from a previous relationship, instead of doing what they should be doing, which is look in the mirror and say, do I have unprocessed baggage that is negatively impacting my relationship? So as I've worked with couples, what I'm seeing more and more is that unrecognized or undealt with baggage from the past is negatively impacting and actually killing more marriages than is necessary. So in this video, I want to talk about some ways that unprocessed or unhealed baggage from the past may be negatively impacting your relationship, and I'll give you just 3 indicators if you're trying to figure out, do I have some unresolved issues from the past? I'll give you 3 indicators that might be saying you have some unhealed and undealt with baggage from the past. That's today on Relation Shots. Welcome to Relation Shots. My name's Eric Wooten. If this is your first time hanging out with us, welcome to the place to get practical relationship advice that actually works in your relationship. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming videos. If you want a free guide to intimacy, you can hit the link in the description area below. And if you're looking for a place that's proven to help you grow in your relationship, you might want to check out our Altered Marriage membership. It's a community full of resources and people that can help you grow in your relationship. You'll see the link in the description area for that as well. All right, let's talk about baggage. Yeah, no, not your boyfriends or your girlfriends or your wife or your husband or the neighbor down the street, your baggage. This is me and you talking about our collective baggage, and here's why. Your baggage is the only baggage you'll ever be in control of. So you can talk about your spouses or your partners, your boyfriend, girlfriend, all you want, but you'll never be able to impact, heal, or get rid of their baggage. So it's no use talking about, let's talk about our own baggage. Here's what I'm seeing more and more and more when working with couples. Couples are finding it hard to resolve conflict, to move past things, not because they don't know how to communicate, not because they don't want to, but because they have undealt with personal baggage that keeps getting in the way of their ability to handle the issue at hand. I've done a video before on this, on the hidden sides of conflict, where I can't deal with the current issue because I'm bringing with me past stuff that's impacting my ability to do it. So what I'm seeing is that couples are not able to deal with their stuff because they're reacting and acting from woundedness, not out of wisdom. So what I want to do in this video is I want to try to address how our woundedness impacts our relationship so we can be aware of it, and then how to identify some of that within us. But what you'll see with lots of couples is they don't recognize either their own, or they recognize it but don't want to deal with it, or they have no idea what their potential spouse or spouse's baggage is, and so they don't know the areas that they need to be a little more sensitive to because they're unaware of it. Let me give you some examples, and I could give you a million of them. So let's say somebody grew up in poverty. Maybe they never had a stable home, had to sleep on people's couches, so they've got this woundedness around the area of money, which means having money, having a savings account, being secure there gives them a sense of security that they do not want to live without, and they marry somebody who doesn't have that woundedness and doesn't care a whole lot about money and really is fine. They're like, we got $500 in the bank, we're good, I'm not worried about it. Maybe they don't manage their spending very well. What they don't know is that their spouse has got this area of woundedness, and every time you don't handle money well, you expose or reopen that area of fear and woundedness, and you're going to get crazy reactions from the people, and that relationship is not going to go well. Let me give you another example. Maybe somebody grew up, and we're just using this name for fictitious, so if your name happens to be Mike, I'm not talking about you. But let's say this guy named Mike, who's overweight, decides to marry a wife who is a fitness instructor. Well, good on him. He got him a hot wife. I'm proud of him. But what we don't know is that Mike has always been, in his own mind, Fat Mike. He grew up in a family that always talked about his weight with all his friends. He was always overweight. This is an area not just he doesn't like, but an area of woundedness and shame that everywhere he has been growing up, he's been Fat Mike, and that puts him in a bad place. So then he marries somebody who's all about fitness. Just who she is opening his woundedness every day. He's basically looking at somebody else that looks, at least in his mind, as a mirror saying, yep, you're fat. Yep, you're fat. Not only that, but she probably eats healthier than he does. Another reminder. Not only that, but I'm guessing that most of the people that she hangs out with might be other people into fitness, because we tend to hang out with people that have similar hobbies to us. So when they go out to dinner with her friends on a Friday night, you got a bunch of fit people and Fat Mike. And we may chuckle about that, but there's a big difference between just not being happy with your weight and it being an area of woundedness and shame, and their whole marriage, who she is going to be reopening his greatest wound without her even trying to. Take another couple. You have somebody that grew up in a family and maybe their dad or mom left them. They got a sense of abandonment, maybe past relationships. Their partners have left them. They got this feeling of abandonment and rejection, this woundedness. And then they go ahead and marry somebody else who grew up in a family where conflict was not handled well. People fought, and every time there was conflict, it escalated to an unhealthy place, both verbally and sometimes physically. So now that person, because of their woundedness, is thinking to themselves, conflict is bad, and whenever there's conflict, I need to avoid it. So this person gets married to this person, and they have a conflict, which is normal in a relationship. Now, because of this person's woundedness, they go, I need to withdraw and get away from this conflict because it's going to go bad. This isn't good. And what they don't know is they have withdrawn from a person who has abandonment issues. So guess who feels abandoned and has had that wound open, which means their reaction is going to go through the roof. They're going to pursue the other person. You don't get to run away from me. You don't get to leave me, which is going to exasperate and open that wound even more. This is going bad. I knew it would go bad. Withdraw, abandon. You can see, and I could give you 1,000 other examples of how our personal woundedness makes our relationships difficult to navigate. And I know a lot of people that are quitting on their marriages simply because they have not dealt with their personal woundedness. So let me give you 3 truths about woundedness so that you know how it can negatively impact your relationship. Number 1, wounds will overpower your priorities. That means you can say I have XYZ as a priority, but if you haven't dealt with a wound, it will often overpower your priority. Ever heard of the term retail therapy? Somebody who goes shopping to feel good about something. So you may say, I have a priority of being fiscally responsible, staying on a budget, managing my money well. But if I don't know how to deal with my inner woundedness and my solution has been to go shopping to feel better about my issues, then guess what? Your woundedness, not being able to deal with the issue, is going to overpower your priority. I want to save money, and you're out shopping, spending money you either don't have or you did not intend to spend on this thing. You may have a priority that says I want to eat healthy or I want to eat less, but you don't know how to manage your emotional pain, and you're an emotional eater. And so guess what happens? Every time there's emotional stress, you're going to binge or overeat or eat stuff you said you wouldn't eat. Not that you didn't have the priority, but the woundedness is more powerful in that moment, and it will overpower your priorities. So if you notice that you have some priorities, but you continue to step over them, it might be there's something you haven't dealt with that's causing you to overstep those things. Number 2, your woundedness will overpower your beliefs. Now, we all have beliefs, and our beliefs are the things that drive our decisions, which lead to outcomes in our lives, whatever it might be. I believe that I need to save 10% of my salary, so I have it automatically withdrawn. That's a decision, and guess what? I build up a savings. So we have beliefs. But what happens oftentimes is that if you've ever had a belief and you say, I believe this thing, but then you behave contrary to that belief, there's only 2 things that could be possible. Either you're lying and you don't really believe that, or you do believe it, but a woundedness overpowers it at a moment when you hit the crossroads of, I say I believe this, but yet I'm driven. So I may say I believe that verbally yelling or physical violence is not okay and is unhealthy in a relationship. but I have a fear of not being able to control my relationships. And so when I'm not able to have a voice, when I feel like I'm not being heard, when I feel like my spouse doesn't want to understand me, I start feeling out of control. What do? I raise my voice and I start putting my hands on them. Not because I didn't believe that's unhealthy, but because my deeper woundedness and fears cause me to act contrary to that. For a lot of dating couples, premarital sex is one of those areas. I know a lot of couples, especially Christian couples, who say, I believe that God wants me to wait until I get married to have sex. They may even say, I believe that's a healthy thing to do. And if you're wondering, I've done a video on 5 reasons not to have sex before marriage. You can check that out. But you say, I believe that, but then you go ahead and have premarital sex. Again, you either don't believe it, or there's something deeper that in the moment is overpowering the belief. For example, you might think that this person may abandon or leave me if I don't have sex with them. So even though I don't think I should, my fears, my woundedness of being alone or being abandoned says I better have sex with them so they don't leave me. Or you may think to yourself, maybe you have not developed the ability to build emotional connection in a relationship. And you're like, the only way that I know how to feel like I'm close to the person is through sex because I don't know how to connect with them emotionally. So even though I don't believe I should be having sex, I'm going to go ahead and have sex because my area of woundedness, not knowing now how to attach emotionally, is causing me to compensate using sex to be able to connect. So your woundedness will overpower your beliefs at times. And then number 3, this is a tough one for Christians, but woundedness will overpower your theology. Yeah, and maybe years of counseling in the church for me have gotten me a little cynical when I hear Christians say things like, God told me that she was going to be my wife, or, I met him in church, and then 3 years later, these couples are getting divorced. And I'm like, man, what happened? I thought God told you. I thought that, you knew this was a covenant for life. And so we have a theological system that when it gets met with an area of woundedness, it's not that we don't believe it theologically, but oftentimes our woundedness will overpower our theology in the moment. So think about your church experience if you've been in church for a while. That means that's why the leader or deacon or pastor can often be teaching one thing while at the same time being in adultery with somebody else in the church. My theology got overpowered by something else. Maybe a need for acceptance, a need for approval, a need for validation caused me to step into a relationship that was unhealthy, even though I theologically knew this is sin and this is not okay. My internal desires that I've not had met have caused me to act contrary. Or maybe a senior pastor that is adept at teaching theology, but is inept at managing healthy relationships with their staff, right? It's not that they don't know theologically or maybe even leadership-wise what they should do, but there's an area of woundedness that's never been taken care of. Maybe a fear of letting others close, a fear of rejection, need to be in control, some areas of shame that they don't want anybody to see. And so that causes them to have unhealthy interactions with staff because they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to allow people in. And so you see that their theology at times gets overpowered by their woundedness. So there's just 3 areas. There's probably quite a few more where if you don't deal with your woundedness, it will come into your relationships and at times overpower your beliefs, your priorities, and even your theology. So if you're sitting here wondering, what if I got some areas that I'm unaware of? Let me just give you 3 signs or maybe signals that you might have some woundedness that you need to deal with. Not a guarantee, but it's at least maybe a gauge to cause you to go, let me look into this a little more. The first sign that you may have an area of woundedness would just be an exaggerated response. So if your reaction or response to a disappointment, a hurt, an issue in a relationship is more than what it would be for a normal person, this might indicate that you have an area of woundedness that's causing you to overreact to a situation that did not need that level of reaction. So maybe exaggerated response is one of those signs. Another sign might be a posture of protection. So when we have an area of woundedness, it's natural for us to want to protect it. So if you notice in relationships that you are guarding certain areas of your life, not allowing people either to fully know you or not depending on somebody for anything. You know, some people go, I'm never going to need anybody, because if I don't need anybody, then I don't get put in a position where I can be let down. But it's just like a regular wound. If I have a wound in my right side and you come close, I'm going to cover it to protect it, or I'm going to turn away from you, or I'm even going to withdraw to give more space. So we do that relationally and emotionally as well. And so if you find yourself kind of operating from a protective posture, it might be an indication that you have a wound that you have not yet healed. And a third sign might be a desire for control. Right? If we have wounds, we want to control our situation, we want to control our relationships so that people cannot get near that wound and hurt us. So if you find yourself needing to control most or all of the aspects of a relationship, you need to be in control of how things go in all of your relationships or romantic relationships, that might be an indicator that you've got an area of woundedness. And when you feel not in control, there is fear associated with, I might get hurt in this area again. You can't control everybody, and that's not a healthy approach for a relationship anyway. So those might be 3 signs to give you an indication there might be an area of woundedness. So there's 3 truths about woundedness in your life and relationships. There's 3 signs to help you identify in your own life. I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section below. Maybe some other ways you see personal woundedness impacting relationship negatively. Again, if you need a place to grow and strengthen your marriage, consider our Altered Marriage membership. You can check out the link in the description area below. And until next time, I'll see you right back here on Relation Shots.